Today's daf is daf ches, and we're studying the sheet of Rav Yosef that if a man is mekadesh an isha with, for example, shirayim, we have to evaluate the market value of the shirayim before she accepts the Kiddushin. And Rav Yosef derives this from shava kesef ki kesef. Just like kesef is kayetz, we know exactly what its value is. Every currency has its value. Af shava kesef nami de kayetz. So we have to do what's called a shuma and determine the exact value of the shirayim before she accepts the Kiddushin. Otherwise, it's not similar to kesef. Rav Yosef and where did I find the source in the Tanoim for this shita? The Sanya we learned in the Brisa, and the Brisa is analyzing a pasuk in the Parsha of Eved Ivri, who was sold to a goy in Vayikra Chav Hey, and it says mikesef miknasa, the kesef with which the Eved is sold. Bekesef hu nikne we darshan v'eno nikne betfua v'kelim, that an Eved Ivri could be kone bekesef. You can purchase and acquire ownership over an Eved Ivri with kesef, but not with tvua, grains, or kelim vessels. And now the Gemara analyzes this brisa. Hai tvua v'kelim echidomin. What exactly is the case in which he wants to be kone the Eved with tvua kelim? Ilema, if it's a case of lo miknu bahu klal. If what we're saying is that kesef is a requirement in being kona and eved ivri, and there's nothing besides kesef, it's kesef and only kesef, that can't be so. Yashiv gulasam rachman l'rabba shava kesef ki kesef. We have a separate ribui in the parsha of mechiras eved ivri to include even shava kesef, which means that the Torah considers shava kesef, that which has a value, to be equal to kesef. And therefore, so far, we don't understand why this pasuk should exclude a kinyan on the Eved Ivri through to a kelim. Either lesbu shava pruta, if we're talking about a case where, let's say, the two of the kelim are not worth a pruta, then my area tvu v'kelim afilu kesef namilo. Even kesef itself, if it's less than a shava pruta, cannot be used and served as a method of kinyan, in this case of Eved Ivri. So by process of elimination, it must be that this tvu kelim has a shava pruta. And if it has a shava pruta, then you can't exclude it from the word kesef because it says yashiv gulasa. Elalav de is behu shava pruta. If it's isbu shav pruta, then obviously it should be operative and valid for a kinyan on the Eved, based on the principle of shava kesef ke kesef. Lo, what's the problem? They did not evaluate the tvua of the kelim before the kinyan was made, and the Bryce is teaching us that you can't be kona with tvua kelim if it's low kayetz. And that means that we have derived the conclusion of Rav Yosef, that halachic principle that you need kayetz in order for something to qualify as kesef. And in fact, Rabbah, who disagrees with Rav Yosef, and he holds that you could be kona and isha without shuma, without kayetz, and making an evaluation. What is Rabbah going to do with this pasuk of mi kesef miknasa? If the Gemara says Rama, who holds that you could be kona b'shava kesef even if we don't know exactly how it's valued, how's he going to interpret the brisa that says you cannot be kona and eved with tvua kelim? Hachi kamar b'toras kesef hu nikna v'eno nikne b'toras tvua kelim umaynu chalipa. B'toras kesef means that you could purchase and acquire ownership of an Eved if the payment is b'toras damim. Damim meaning it's a full-fledged payment, or call it a compensation for that which is being sold, in this case an Eved. But if, let's say, instead of Toras Kesef, you use Toras Tvua V'Kelim, then Eino Nikin. It doesn't have that similarity to Kesef to be included in the expansion of Kesef. Now, the Gemara analyzes this question of Tvua and Kelim. How do you effectuate a kinyan in Tvua v'Kelim if it's not Toras Kesef? And the answer is it's Toras Chalipin. And as we said in the past, in Chalipin, there's no actual transfer of ownership over the object which is being used for the kinyan Chalipin. And if you do a kinyan Chalipin with Tvua v'Kelim, then the Brisa is teaching us that it's not a valid kinyan. So we see very clearly that the possibility of using Shavah Kesef is only if it's given b'Toras Kesef, but not b'Toras Tvua Kelim. So the Gemara raises the following objection: Rav Nachman is of the opinion that Chalipin could not serve as a valid kinyan in the case of foodstuff, which would exclude peros, but would also exclude tvua. So how could you effectuate, according to Rav Nachman, a kinyan of Chalipin with tvua? Ella says, let's go back to the drawing board and say that there is no Shava Pruta the Tvua v'Kelim. Udekama, and you ask me, my area Tvua v'Kelim, I feel Kesef Nami Lo. Even Kesef, if it's less than a Shava Pruta, does not have the power to effectuate a kinyan. And the answer is Lo Mi Boy Kama. The Brisa is saying something in the style of Ein Sarach Loma. It goes without saying. Lo Mi Boy Kesef. I don't have to tell you a din of Kesef. The Isbu Shava Pruta in. Lo, that less than a pruta's worth of kesef is not considered kesef. Avol tvua v'kelim eva midakarva and asayu gomaru makni nafshe. You might entertain the idea that in the case of kesef of tvua v'kelim, he's being makarev hana asayu. In other words, the person who's holding on in this case to the kesef v'kelim is going to benefit from the Kesli Kelim because that's going to be Haba, Hana, Haba, Mehem, Mizumenes, Leba, Miyad. Lovo Miyad. So this is called Bakarian Asaya. We found this in a number of sugis in Shas, for example, even though a shvu is only on Shava Pruta, if you take a shvu on a Kli, the Rashba says that the shvua is valid if the tviyah was on a kli, or for example, a nal of chalipin, even if the nal is worth less than a shava proof. Udeka amrit my area tvua v'kelim afilu kesef nami. So you'll ask me, why you focused exclusively on tvua kelim? If the kesef doesn't have a shava proof, you can't use it to effectuate a kinyan. Lomi boy kamar. The Brisa is using the style of Ein Tzarech Loma. Lomi boy kesef. It goes without saying that this din is kayim b'kesef di isle shava pruta. If it's worth a shava pruta in lo kesef cannot effectuate a kinyan if it's worth less than a shava pruta. Avol tvua. The Kalim, In the case of kesef, what's kesef worth? Unless it has a value. If it's not a shava pruta, it's worthless. But in the case of Tuva Kalim, each one of these has a function. For example, if a person is in a state of hunger, he needs that food. And that's called Makarve Hanasayim. Is Gomar Makni Nafshe, even if the Kesef Kalim is worth less than a Shava Pruta, he has a Gmir Stas. That was the Havamina, Kamash Malan. The Brisa comes to teach us that the pasuk is excluding two of a kalim, even that ain't evid niknu, even if they don't have a shava pruta. Rav Yosef, just 1 second. So you know what? I have another raya, says Rav Yosef. I have something else up my sleeve. The sign we learned in the raya, Egel zel lefijon b'ni. Talis zu lefijon b'ni. Lo amar klum. Take this egel for a pigeon for my son who's a bechar, or this talis lo amar klum. But egel zeh b'chamesh slime lepigeon b'ni. Talis zu b'chamesh slime lepigeon b'ni. B'no padu. That's a valid method of kinyan. So how does this limud prove Rav Yosef's din of kayetz? Hi pigeon echidam e levedelo shavi. If we're talking about a case where the chayfetz that's being given to the Kohen is worth less than 5 slaim, so what changes when he says, I'm giving you this kesef pigeon v'toras chamisha slaim? It doesn't have that value. Kol kamine, can he lie to him? El alav, it must be that the brisa is talking about afal gav, this shavi. Even in a situation, a scenario where the chayfetz is worth chamesh slaim, but keva de lo kaitzi lo, since it hasn't been evaluated, it's not valid for a king. So we have now a very strong raya for Rav Yosef. But the Gemara says, Kol kamine. It's impossible. So Gemara answers lo. Li olam de lo shavi. The egel or the talis is worth less than 5 slaim. And that's the reason why the pigeon is not chal in the first case, kigon de kibal kohen olayim. When the Bryce says in the second case that the pigeon is chal, we're talking about a situation in which the kohen received that chayfetz, and it's shaveh chamesh sloim. Ki hadar of kahana shakal sudri pi mibei pigeon aben. You can give something that's worth less than the value that we need, as long as the recipient says, you know what, I accept it as if you'd give me the whole value. So Rav Kahana would receive a suda, which is worth a fraction of the tuition costs, or in this case, the pigeon aben. So it's worth less than 5 sloim, but he could accept it from his own son. Alternatively, we derive from this case, the way Rav Yosef is interpreting it, that an egel lepidyon aben is not possible. We'd have to do a serious evaluation to find out the exact age of Chamesh Sloim. When do we say that a person could evaluate a chayfetz? And we said that a person like Rav Kana could take a sudar as if it were worth 5 sloim when it's really not worth that much on the market. Ella Kigon Rav Kana, says Rashi, that's only like someone like Rav Kana Gavarab. He desperately needs to cover his head with a sudar. If he lost his sudar, then he's going to pay. Aval Kuli Alma, if someone is not that exceptionally wealthy person, lo. He cannot be marich the sudar more than the mechir, its true value. And he cannot receive for pidyon aben, even if he doesn't object to the 5 slug. Yehadimar barav Ashi, Zava, and Sudra me'ime. He acquired ownership of a kerchief, of a sudar, from his mother. Like the story of Marbarav Ashi, who purchased a sudar from the mother of Rabbah, and it was only worth Shavi Asora Betleisar. It was only worth 10 dinrim, but he bought it for 13 dinrim. So you see that another Mechashiv is willing to pay a price that's way above its true, authentic market price, if need be. And that's why we could be Kovea for him a Shavas Sudar at a very high price, because he's in need of it. He's an Olam Choshev, has to wear a Sudar. Omer Rabbi Lazar is Kadshi Libim Monav and Asan La Dinar Harei Zu Mekudesh V'Yashliv. If he offers to marry her with 100 dinar and he only gave her 1 dinar, then that extra dinar, that 1 dinar is Kesef Kiddushin, and the 99 dinarim are a Tanai. And the Kiddushin Achal immediately. She cannot back out of the deal. It's a Tanai that he gave that he will pay the whole balance of the money. My timer. Kevan di Omar La Mana v'yoyev la dinar, Kimandi Omar La me almanas dami. It's as if he said, on condition that I will be mashlim the balance of the money. V'yomer Afun Omar Rav, Kol Omar Almanas, Kol Omar Achshav dami, and therefore the Kenyan is chal immediately, on the condition that at some time in the future he will fulfill his Tanai. Meisvei, the Kash from Brisa, a man says to a woman, is Kachi Libimona, for Yamona Vaholech, Virotza Echad Mehem, Lachzar, Zafiu Bedinar Achmar, Mishus Biyada. It seems that she could be Choser before he shells out the entire sum of the money, because the Kiddushin is not Chal until she receives the whole money. So it's not the way we had learned before in the name of Rabbi Lazar that the rest is only a Tanai. And the Gemara answers So again, according to Rabbi Eliezer, let's go over it. She was this kasha immediately with the first dinar, and the rest of the tanai, and therefore she cannot be choser. So what do we do with this brisa? If he says that with this mana that I'm holding on to, then her das is to be miskadesh with the entire mana, and therefore till she gets the last dinar of the 100 dinar that make up a mana, the Kiddushin is not chal, she can be choser. In fact, the Gemara Hamid the Sefer, I'm going to quote to you now the Sefer of the Brisa, where it says explicitly mana zu, is that implies that Reisha is mana stam. So therefore, even in this case of mana stam, where he didn't say mana zu, the Kiddushin and achal, until he gives her the entire mana against Rabbi Lazar. And the Gemara now says, here's the Sefer. The Katani Sefer, Omar Allah, man says to a woman, is kachi leave a mana zu, v'nimtza mana chaser dinar, o dinar shal nechoshes, eino mekudesh dinar ra, rezo mekudesh v'yalaf. So the Sefer of the Bryce is clearly talking about a case of mana zu, and her das is only on the full mana. If she gets 99 out of 100, she's not mekudeshes. Or if one of the 100 dinar turns out to be nechoshes, that's not a full-fledged mana, she's not mekudeshes. But if it's a dinar ra, then the Kiddushin is chal, he has to switch it and replace it with a dinar tov. And the Gemara is going to explain what dinar ra is. So the Gemara says, lo. You don't have to interpret that the Reisha is talking about a case of stam. Reisha begam sefer both are the Omer Manazu. Uperisha Kama Farish. The sefer is just interpreting the Reisha. Under what circumstances can she be choser ba? And he too, of course. Kigon di Omer Allah Manazu. Achinam mistabra to e salke daitach Reisha b'manastam. Is hashta b'manastam lo avi kiddushi b'manazumi boy. If in the case of manastam she's not mekudeshes until the last dinar is passed on to her, then manazu boy. Is there any room to even ask that question? Certainly, she's not mekudeshes until she gets the entire mana. So it must be that the Brisa is talking about a case from the beginning to the end of Manazu. Ibishum Holo area. That's not a proof. Because Tana Sefer Legluye Reisha could be that he's telling you in the Sefer it's Manazu to make sure that you understand that the Reisha is Manastam. Shalo Tomar Reisha b'Manazu. Which would mean that if the Reisha is b'Manazu, Avol b'Manastam Ava Kiddushin, it's immediate Kiddushin. Therefore, Tana Sefer Manazu, Michal to Reisha b'Manastam. It means that the Reisha is Manastam, but Filachi Lava Kiddushin, nevertheless, until she gets the last dinar, the Kiddushin is not Chal. Now the Gemara offers another alternative answer to the stira between the Brisa and Rav Lazar. Rav Ashi Omar, Mone v'holech shayni. That if in the Reish of the Brisa, even if it's a case of Manastam, it's irrelevant. If he's counting out the mana one by one dinar by another, then Daita Kula, her das is that she's only accepting a full mana for Kiddushin. And therefore there's a Tanai of Im that the Kiddushin only be chal when the last mana is transferred over to him. Gemara now goes back to the Bryce Dina Shal Nechosh Sechidami. Idi Yadaba, if she knew about the Nechoshes, her Savra V'Kibla, she accepted it. Well, Tzricha the Yav Nila Balayla. She was unaware of the fact that it was a dinar of the Choshes because it was during the night. She couldn't tell. Inami another pasuk Takachli Beni Zuzi. It was one Nechoshes, one dinar of Nechoshes that was mixed up with many dinarim and many zuzim. She didn't recognize B'Shas Maisa that it was worth. It was only Nechoshes. Hi dinar Raichitami. Idolo Nafek. If no one will take it for payment, it's not worth anything. Is Hainu Dina Shal Nechoshes. So Dina Ra should have the same status as the Dina Nechoshes, which means that there's no Kiddushin. And yet here it says, there is some possibility that people will accept it, but only al yidei cha. Only rarely if somebody is really desperate. Omar Rav Nachman, Omar he says, he says, take this object as a guarantee, as if it were a mashkon for the money that I'm going to give you. Eina mekudeshes. Why? On the top of Chesamid Beis, mana ein kan, mashkan ein kan. He didn't give her a mana, and he didn't give her a mashkon. So mashkin is only when there is a chov that's already outstanding.